Good afternoon, everyone. Just getting these settings set up here. Hope everyone is having a good day. Give people a couple minutes here to join. Hey, Joel, how are you? So while we're waiting for people to join here, one of the things we're going to talk about, obviously, get a PPP update here. But if you have actually already submitted your PPP application and you've got approval from the SBA, I'd like to know that. We've had a couple people that have submitted it. No one's officially got it approved yet, but awesome. See a good amount of people on here, so let's get into it. It's been a little while since we've done these. Fortunately, unfortunately, we haven't had that much news to really pass on. There's been a lot of things going back and forth, a lot of different ideas and different strategies that people have been talking about. And what I just want to get into today is just kind of see if we can put some of that aside, kind of give an update on where we stand, what we're recommending shops to do. As you'll kind of hear a little bit later on, we still don't know exactly how some of this stuff is going to work out as far as recognition, taxability, and stuff like that. But I want to just kind of give everyone an overview on where we stand, what we're recommending people to do, and kind of give you enough information so that you can make this decision and then also talk to your bank. All of this stuff is going to be done through your bank. So really, at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we're on the same page with them as well. Cool. So first things first, officially the SBA started accepting the PPP forgiveness applications last week. Now, I have not had a single person that's actually got it accepted by the SBA, but I've had probably 15 or 20 shops that have already submitted to their bank and got the bank approved. So the way that this process works is you do the forgiveness application with your bank. Nothing is done directly with the SBA, just like we did our original PPP application. And so we submit to the bank our PPP forgiveness application, and then the bank has to approve it. I believe the bank has 60 days for that approval process, and then they submit to the SBA. The SBA has then 90 days for the approval process. Now, what we've been seeing for, like I said, the handful of clients that have already submitted theirs to the banks have been turned around within hours and saying, yes, you've been approved. All of those clients I've told you about that have already submitted to their bank, they have been approved within the hour for the most part. Really, the biggest reason why most of these banks are approving this stuff so quickly is if we're using a 24-week period, we're going to be 2 to 3 times above the amount of money that we had to spend just in payroll costs alone. You got to remember also, these banks are not getting their money, either the money that they gave to you for the PPP or the commissions that they make until this loan gets forgiven. And so that's why some of you out there might be thinking, hey, my bank's really pressuring me to get this done. Should I get it done? That's exactly why these banks are doing that. So we'll kind of get into should we be doing that now or should we be waiting a little bit later? But I wanted to kind of touch on a couple other things before that. So one thing to keep in mind is this is going to be taxable income as it stands right now. There's a lot of different talk on, is it going to be taxable income? Are we going to be able to defer it? Are we going to have to recognize it this year? As of right now, we know that at some point it's going to end up being taxable income. Now, of course, just like anything else in this, that could change. But as of right now, we're expecting to pay tax on it. And our clients right now is we're expecting to pay tax on it this year. Now, what we don't know is, do we have to recognize it this year? Are we allowed to push it to next year? Do we have to recognize all the income this year? Or is it not till we're officially forgiven by the SBA? That stuff right now is completely unclear, right? Anyone that has says that is definitively going to be taxed this year, is just probably making an assumption on it because the IRS and the SBA have not came out and give us official guidance on that. That being said, I don't think that paying tax on it this year is necessarily the worst thing. Now, not everyone's situation is the same, right? So this is not a blanket statement. You could have something going on with your business where it makes sense to push it to next year. This is where you talk to your accountant and see if, you can figure out a plan to make sure it's something that's going to make the most sense for you. But my argument on recognizing and paying the tax on it this year is we have the money right now, right? We've already got the money we should have in the bank. Most shops that I've talked to have had a really good year. And so we have the cash there. It's set aside. Personally, for me, If I have the cash there, I'd rather be done with this, pay the tax, move on with my life. Now, sure, delaying it 16, 18 months until we had to file in 2022 would be really nice, but tax rates are only going to go one direction. Not to bring politics in any of this. And, even if we have Trump that wins again, we know tax rates are not going to go down, right? They're historically low. They're lowest than they've ever been. And so tax rates are either going to stay exactly the same or they're going to go up. We would be in a really bad position if we said, hey, you know what, we're going to defer this income to next year, tax rates go up, and now we're maybe paying an extra 5-6 percentage points on the income just by delaying it another year. And so we don't know, even if Biden does win, we don't know if he's going to go in there and change tax laws. But really, it's kind of anyone that has a crystal ball would be making a lot more money, right? So we just don't know. And so we have to see on this. That being said, though, if you do not want to get this money as taxable income this year, if you're really trying to push it to next year, then I would probably be holding off on doing a forgiveness application. So as of right now, the forgiveness applications are due 10 months after the end of your 24-week period. Okay, so if you got it back in May, your 24-week period ends around today, you would actually have 10 months starting today to do that forgiveness application. And so this is not something where it has to be rushed by any means. We have a good bit of time on that. And so some people their banks have been asking about it. Hey, do you want a 10-month extension? I've never found out there's an official extension. What I think the banks are trying to figure out is they're trying to plan on this as well. And so be communicating with your lender. Even if you aren't going to do the forgiveness application this year, you don't have to be telling him, hey, I'm trying to delay this because I'm trying to push the income to next year. But you can just say, hey, you know what? It's going to be fully forgiven. We're still in the process of getting our paperwork together. We do plan on doing a forgiveness application, but we're probably going to be doing it later this year, later this month, whatever it might be. Just keep an open dialogue with your bank just so they know what's going on. Like I was saying before, the banks have a vested interest to get this money from the SBA. So you can see the pressure that they're getting. Another thing that you got to think about is if you're in a situation where all of this is not forgiven, then they're actually going to have to turn that into a loan. And so banks are wanting to plan for that as well. So just make sure that you're talking to your bank, make sure that they're keeping you up to date on if they're even accepting applications. A lot of banks still aren't accepting this, or what they need to do just to make sure that there's no surprises there. So as far as applying to your bank, you're either going to be doing it on the SBA forms, or a lot of banks out there having their online portal. And so double check with your banker on how they want you putting this information together. Even for people that are doing the online form, you can still be using the SBA forms as a guideline, because essentially that's exactly what they've done. They've just taken the SBA form and they put it online into their portal. It's an easier way for them to kind of track this stuff and see what's going on. We are always going to choose the 24-week period. I know some of you out there probably have used this all up in the 8-week period. We're going to use the 24-week period. The reason why we're going to elect to use the 24-week period versus the 8-week period is that I don't want a bank coming back and even have any second thoughts about this. If I'm a shop owner and I go to my bank and I say, hey, you gave me $100,000. I spent $103,000 in my 8-week period. You can see how we're pretty close there, where there could be a situation where if I didn't calculate something correctly, that we could be in a non-forgivable position pretty quickly. Versus if I'm using a full 24-week period, I don't have to mess with utilities. I don't have to mess with rent. I don't have to mess with health insurance, retirement. I can use just my payroll wages, and I'm probably going to be 2 to 3 times over. A bank's not even really going to look at that twice, because if I go to my bank in that same situation and say, you gave me $100,000, I spent $260,000, I would have to have so grossly misstated this for this to be in a non-forgivable position that they're just not going to give this as much scrutiny as they would for something that's a lot closer. Also on this is no matter what forms we have to do, whether it's the long form, the short form, this 50,000 or less EZ form that I'm going to show you in a little bit here, all of the stuff that we are claiming forgiveness for, we have to give them backup documentation. So if we're doing payroll, really the two things that they're asking for payroll is a payroll summary from your payroll provider. If you're with ADP, Paychex, one of the national ones, they're actually doing PPP summaries that show, whatever your 24-week period is, and they show how much each employee earned. That's perfect. That's exactly what the bank is looking for. If you're in QuickBooks payroll, you can use the payroll summary or the payroll detail for that same period. It's going to give the bank all the detail they need of, this is how I got to the total. Here's who made all of this money. I think the only other thing that some banks are asking for is the 941s, the quarterly payroll tax returns for the second and third quarter. Again, very straightforward for us to get that information and get it to the bank. Now, if we're in a position where we're having to do rent, interest, utilities, and stuff like that, that would mean that we'd have to get canceled checks. We'd have to get bill statements. We possibly have to get, other stuff from the vendors to substantiate what we spent this money on. And if we're in a situation where at the 24-week period, we just don't need that we just don't need that much extra forgivable expenses because we spent it all in payroll. So let's make our life easier. Let's make the bank's life easier and just keep this simple so that we're, just having a good, clean packet go across our banker's desk, get stamped, and just be done with this. And so as far as what you should be doing right now, I'm looking at 3 different groups of people or borrowers or businesses to kind of give you a better guidance on what you should be doing. So the first one that we're going to look at and what we're actually going to go into today is if you got less than $50,000 on your PPP. This is just the $50,000 for the PPP. We're not talking about idle money. We're not talking about the idle grant. It's just if you got $50,000 or less on your PPP. If that is the case for you, then good news is they've came out with a easier form for you guys to use. It's very straightforward. We don't have to give them a whole lot of information, and we're pretty much going to be able to check off the boxes, initial this, and be done with this. I'm actually going to show you, we're going to walk you through how to do that one here in a couple minutes. The next one is going to be if you're at $50,000 to $150,000. I believe a lot of you guys might have heard us talk about this before. You might have even heard about this on the news, but there was a lot of talk that $150,000 or less is going to have some sort of easy forgiveness application or a much more accelerated form to do this. Very similar to what we see on the $50,000 or less. So if you're in the $50,000 to $150,000 category, you really have 2 choices. The EZ form is very easy to do, right? No pun intended. I've helped a number of shops do this, and it's maybe taken us 5 to 10 minutes to fill out this form. By doing a 24-week period and just using payroll, it's really not that hard. Now, like I said, there's still a chance that they give an easier form for $50,000 to $150,000, but I don't expect any news on that to come out here in the next couple of weeks. I really don't expect anything to come out until the election. And so $50,000 or less, I'm saying go ahead, do your application. If for whatever reason you for sure don't want this income this year, then you can push it to the end of the year. But like I said before, if you're $50,000 or less, I don't think there's any reason not to do the application now. $50,000 to $150,000, if you want to wait and you want to wait for an easier thing, fine. If you want to do it and be done with it right now, then I wouldn't argue with that either. Even the easy form is not going to take you that much time. We're maybe taking 10 minutes versus 2 minutes on this simplified form. We're not going to get into the easy form today. Next week, so keep an eye out for this. I'm going to announce it and we'll share it on our Facebook page and we'll email out to our clients as well. Is next week, I'm actually going to go through the easy application for borrowers above $50,000 and walk you through how to do this. I think once you see how easy it is to do, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable with it. And you'll be able to make a better determination of, hey, do we want to do this now? Or do we want to wait to see if an even simpler form comes out for us? Now, the third category is if you're at $150,000 or more. If you're at $150,000 or more, the forms that we have right now are the forms that we're going to get. They're not going to come out with an easier form for borrowers that got over $150,000. And so if you want to do that form now, great, do it, be done with it. We're still using the EZ form, which I'll go through next week. If you did have some reductions in headcount, stuff like that, you possibly have to use the long form, which is a little bit more complicated, still not the end of the world. Like I said before, we have 10 months to do this. It's not a huge urgency on it, but personally, if it was me, let's do this. Let's be done with this. Let's get this money forgiven and let's move on with our lives and on with our businesses. So that's kind of where we stand with all the different categories. What I want to do now is I want to show you guys this shortened form for $50,000 or less, and then kind of open this up and ask you guys can ask any questions that you might want to get into. All right, let's see here. Got a question here before we show this. Hey Jeff, how are you? If our 24 weeks have passed and our bank is asking for the application now, can we get you guys to help us fill out the application at time, or are you wanting us to wait? And so like I said, Jeff, if you were at $50,000 or less, then we can do this really simplified form. We can help you do that as well. If you're 50,000 or above, we're going to have to use the easy form more than likely. But again, we're going to walk through it next week, but you know how to reach me. Just shoot me an email or give me a call and be happy to walk you through whatever we need to do here. So let's share this screen. All right. And so I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit here. And so this is called the Paycheck Protection Program Loan Forgiveness Application Form 3508S. Somehow the SBA has a way with giving us complicated information here, complicated names, but I actually just posted that link there in the chat box so that you guys see that form. Now, for some of your banks, they're going to allow you to do this on their website, but even if they're doing it on their website, it's going to go off the same form here. And so what I want to do is just kind of go down through this form and not only go through what they want out of us, but kind of get into a couple of issues that I've seen people kind of get hung up on. I see you guys asking some questions here. When I finish up with this, I'll open up and address all those questions, all right? So first thing is very straightforward. Business name, trade name, tax ID number, business address. I think you guys can figure out how to do that. PPP loan number, right from the bank. If you don't know your PPP loan number, ask your bank, they'll get it to you. This is lender loan number. Again, we're going to have two numbers that come from this PPP. One that the bank assigns you, and then one that the SBA assigns you. So we get both of those numbers, put them in here. PPP loan account, very straightforward. How much did you get? And then loan disbursement date, when did that money hit your account? Okay. Employees at the time of the loan application, right? So employees at the time of the loan application means how much did you put on that original application, or how many people were employed at that date. Employees at the time of forgiveness application is how many people were on there today. Now, the thing that's a little bit different for this form versus some of the other ones is I'm going to flip over here to the actual instructions on this and highlight something on here. Where is it? So if you see here, there is a highlighted section that says borrowers that use Form 3508S, which is this form, are exempt from reduction in loan forgiveness amounts based on reduction in full-time equivalent employees. Okay? And so unlike the other application for people that reduce the amount of employees that they had, and you get penalized for it, for this easy or for this very shortened form for $50,000 or less, it doesn't matter if you reduced employees. You're still going to get the same full forgiveness amount. Now, you got one thing to keep in mind is if you had miscalculated the amount of employees that you put on your original application, you do not have to write the same amount that you put on the application. You can put the correct amount on there. The employees at the time of the loan application and the employees at the start of the year, the employees on February 15th, these dates of the original employee dates are very, very unclear. But as far as we're concerned, you know, if they're asking for the employees at the time of the loan application, that's exactly what we're going to give them. Now, if you had an employee leave under their own accord, they weren't fired, they just walked out, they quit, they retired, they moved away, you do not actually get any penalty for reducing the headcount. Okay. If you had a person that you laid off, that you let go, then you are supposed to actually either replace that person by the time you do the forgiveness application or by the end of the year. So some things to keep in mind there as far as it goes with reduction of headcount. Like I said, for this specific one at $50,000 or less, it really doesn't make a difference. But when we go into the easy form next week, we'll kind of dive into a little bit deeper on some of those other safe harbor elections and stuff like that for the headcount. Next thing we need to fill out on here is idle advance amount. Okay, and so this is not the idle loan. So I've seen some people put 150,000 on here. This is the grant portion that you got. It's the money that was direct deposited into your account. It was either $1,000 to $10,000 if you got it. That's what you're going to put in there. Again, just like with the PPP, when you got that idle grant or that idle loan, it also came with an application number. Just fill that in there. Forgiveness amount. So forgiveness amount for us, for this example, is going to be the exact same thing as the PPP loan amount. As long as we spent all of the money, we are going to get full forgiveness. If you got $50,000 or let's say $49,000, so we're less than the $50,000, we got $40,000 here, and I spent $80,000. I don't need to put $80,000 here in this line. I just put $40,000, right? We put exactly what we got for PPP, no more, no less. Or I guess less if you didn't use it, but almost everyone here probably used all of this. So that is all of the numbers that you have to put on this form. Everything else below here is just initialing. This is just saying that it does not exceed, the amount that we're requesting for forgiveness does not exceed the PPP amount. It's also saying that we did not include payroll that were above the cap. If we're using a 24-week period, we can only use $20,000 at the most for owner's payroll. Other people have a much higher limit. The next one is saying that I understand that if I use it for unauthorized funds, you can come sue me, right? The next one is that we've verified that these are eligible costs and they're allowable. The next one here is that we've submitted required documentation. Like I said before, all banks are being a little bit different on what they're asking for, so just double check with your bank. Most of them want to see a payroll detail or payroll summary report from your payroll provider or QuickBooks, and then also the quarterly 941s from whatever period is covered in your 24-week period. This next one is just saying that under penalties of perjury, everything I say is correct. The next one is saying that, hey, the tax documents that I have submitted to my bank are the same ones that I filed with the IRS, right? We're not doing anything funny with any of the reports. And then the last one is just saying, hey, I understand that if you could come back at any point and ask me for documentation, and I'll be able to substantiate that and back that up to the SBA. Once we've initialed all those, we sign this, date it, print it, give it to our bank, along with the payroll reports, the payroll tax returns, and then we're done. So if you're at $50,000 or less, it's literally a one-page thing. Very, very straightforward. I'd recommend knocking out and being done with it. Like I said, $50,000 or above, we're going to get into in more detail next week on how we actually do that form. And then now I just kind of want to open this up and go through some of these questions here. So let's see here. We got a good bit of questions coming in. Hey, Melinda, what is the average taxable rate? Good question. And so I think what Melinda's asking here is, if I got $100,000, how much should I expect to pay tax on $100,000? I'm using 25%, Melinda, as a good rule of thumb. If I got $100,000 in PPP, I'm setting aside 25 grand in case I need to pay tax on it this year. Rick, this money is taxable, correct? And so if you miss the first few minutes, once this is done, you'll be able to go back and actually watch the beginning part of it. But yes, this is taxable income as it stands right now. Will they change that? Possibly, but we are planning right now that it's all going to be taxable income. Hey, Michael. It says, well, actually, this is James, not Michael. You confused me there, James. With the PPP funds being taxable, will that affect many shop owners with the 2020 tax bills? There are many ways to offset the additional tax implications, of course. Well, effect. I'm not sure if make a statement to ask your question, but yeah, I mean, exactly right. You know, James, this is going to increase people's tax bills, just like any other income. You know, there's ways to eliminate this. Maybe some of that PPP money, we make sure we're maxing out our retirement. Hey, if you're thinking about buying equipment, vehicles, and stuff like that, this is income just like anything else. So there are ways to minimize this, plan for it, and stay ahead of it. So good comment there. Hey, Jenny, I'm in the same situation and not worried if I should be concerned as well. I'm not sure. Shoot me an email what you mean on that, Jenny, or follow up on here. So what are the advantages or disadvantages of filing the PPP forgiveness in 2020 versus 2021? $50,000 to $150,000 loans. And so, Michael, the thing on this is we're not sure on how the SBA or the IRS is going to make us recognize this money. What we're under the impression of right now is technically the PPP is a loan until the SBA comes back and says, hey, this is forgiven. Right. And so until the SBA says that this money is forgiven, theoretically, we don't have to count this as income. And so if we push this and you do the forgiveness application, let's say the last week of December, it doesn't get accepted by the SBA until 2021, then technically, unless they're going to change this or clarify this, we could report that as 2021 income, right? The benefit of doing that is instead of paying tax on this in 6 months, we're going to pay tax on this in 18 months. We essentially get another 12 months to do whatever we want with this money, invest it, set it aside, plan for it, minimize it, really do whatever we want. Like I said before, the biggest thing that makes me nervous about that is really two things. I have the cash now because I got the PPP money. We had a good year. Do I just want to be done with it, pay it, and have it behind me? And then number two, like I said, what if taxes go up? We're going to feel pretty dumb if we waited till next year, income tax rates go up 5, 6, 7%. And now just for the fact that we held it for another year, we're paying an extra 7, 8, 9 grand. And so that's kind of the two schools of thoughts there. Now, one of the things on that, Michael, is if I defer my forgiveness application till 2021, we could also recognize that income early if we want to. And so that kind of gives us some flexibility. Even though it's not officially forgiven by the SBA, I can't see any reason why the IRS would be angry at us for recognizing income early. So we could still choose to bring that and recognize it in 2020. There's just so many things up in the air on that. It's just really hard to figure out exactly what we're going to have to do, what we can do, what our options are. And with all the stuff going on with the election, Supreme Court, stuff like that, I don't think that we're going to get a whole lot better information on that right now. And so we're just going to have to use our best judgment. All right, let's see here, Jackie. I received a $100,000 PPP loan. After 24 weeks, I submitted the easy loan forgiveness application utilizing the money for payroll only. I did not lay off any employees, did not cut their hours. It only took 10 days and I received full forgiveness. Way to go, Jackie. So did you receive full forgiveness from the bank or from the SBA? I'd be curious to know that. If you got it from the SBA, you'll be the first person I've heard that have actually got it officially approved by the SBA. All right. All right. How do you feel about owners paying themselves a payroll bonus equal to the amount of the PPP funding to offset the additional income? Payroll tax would come off the bonus as well. Adding a bit extra expensive gross bonus would be personal income jump up considerably, but the tax would be covered and paid through the corporation. I don't like this idea of paying a bonus unless you're a C corporation. If you're a C corporation, then it's a way of reducing our C corporation income. And then we are getting that money personally, but there's withholdings. Obviously, anytime that we're paying ourselves extra wages, though, we're paying payroll taxes. If you're an S corporation, don't do this. If you're an S corporation, there's no benefit by paying that bonus because we're essentially getting a deduction on one side, getting income on the other one. And then the only thing we're left with is paying a bunch of payroll taxes. Dawn, EIDL loan is the one from the state. So the EIDL loan is the EIDL loan, and that's the one from the SBA. And so you originally would have got a grant, which would have come as a direct deposit to you. And then if you were offered the actual loan, that was up to $150,000 payable over 30 years. And Kim following up, yes, it'll be taxable income in the year that's forgiven. So yeah, as of right now, that's what we're thinking is when the SBA comes back and says, hey, this is all forgiven, that's the day that this is going to become taxable income. Might have some flexibility on when we recognize that, but that's how it stands right now. So the main question I have is proof of tax withholding. Chase is saying that it's required as a 3-member partnership with guaranteed payments. The partners process their own taxes. Business is considered a pass-through entity. The business does not withhold taxes. Joseph, I'm honestly kind of confused by why Chase would say that. And so the way it's supposed to work with partnerships is whatever you reported last year on your K-1 as self-employment income is essentially going to be treated as your wages for this year, whether or not you pay that or not. And so I'll give you an example is if on your partnership last year, you got $52,000 and you paid self-employment tax on that, that works out to be the equivalent of paying yourself $1,000 a week. And so that would mean for an 8-week period, you would get $8,000 of forgiveness for each of your partners, no matter what you did this year. For the 24-week period, it would actually be capped. I'll turn this off so you can see that. It'll actually be capped at $20,000. Okay. And so it has nothing to do with withholding. I mean, there's no withholding ever done for partnership K1 income, other than what you do personally with estimated payments. And so I'm really, really kind of confused by that one. 25%, yikes. Yeah, Melinda, you're in California, so it could even be worse for you guys. But 25% is kind of a good rule of thumb. Robin, what about sole proprietors with no employees? So just like I said before, right before this, sole proprietors, whatever you reported on your Schedule C last year is deemed as your wages. And so the most that you could get is $20,000 for the forgiveness period. And then, that's probably going to be over and above what you got because you can only get up to 2.5 months. And so essentially for a Schedule C, if it's only you, whatever you received on the PPP is going to be fully forgiven. Hey, Laura. Hi, are all loans, no matter when dispersed, eligible for 24 weeks? Yeah, and so the people that got these loans early, you actually had the choice of 8 or 24 weeks. I can't remember the exact cutoff date, but it was either the first couple of weeks of July or August. Anyone that got loans after that date, they had to go for the 24 weeks. But either way, everyone is eligible to do the 24 weeks. My husband and I originally paid ourselves a higher amount because we could, but then we figured out that we have surgery. We're in the second group. We'll use a 24-week period. Yeah, and so Debbie, you will be able to still do the EZ form. You're just going to be capped out on how much you can deduct for you and your husband. If you guys don't need it, you guys probably spend enough in a 24-week period that you could just use all of your other employees and don't even mess with you and your husband. We don't even need it. Chris, I received $55,200. Can I use this form or you have to wait? So you're going to be using the EZ form, not this super easy form, the short form here. You're going to be using the EZ form that we're going to get into next week. Lorraine, I missed the deadline info. How long do I have to apply for forgiveness? So you got it on May 7th. So May 7th is the start of your 24-week period, which ends pretty much sometime in October. You have 10 months after that 24-week period to do forgiveness. So you got a ton of time. James, PNC is not accepting applications yet. I've been told they'll receive an email. Should I be worried? No, Lorraine, we got plenty of time. I wouldn't be worried whatsoever. A lot of these banks are being very, very slow on it. Hey, Lisa, will you be doing a video for over $150,000 applications? So yes, so next week when I'm going to be doing the EZ form, that's going to be for everyone over 50,000. So 50,000 to 150, 150,000 to 2 million, that's going to be the same form. So tune in for that and we're going to go through all of that stuff. Laurie, how do you prove that an employee quit was not laid off? So for this short form that I'm doing, it doesn't even matter because we're not getting penalized for it. The only way that you can prove theoretically what they want is they want proof that the employee left, you offered them their job back, and they didn't come back. So whether that's a form of text message, whether that's a form of a letter, you're going to have to use your best judgment on this. I mean, in a lot of situations, it doesn't make sense to send someone a letter. They stormed out, they walked away, they moved away. There's going to be some honor system on this, I would have to imagine. Ideally, a letter and then a letter back from them declining it would be the most rock solid thing. I just don't really think it's going to make a huge difference, Laurie, because even if you did get penalized for reducing employees, most people are 2 to 3 times over, so you're still going to be in a forgivable position. Linda, would you go over the number of employees regarding for this 3508S application? So she's asking about this actual application that we're looking at here. Just the number of employees at the time that you apply for this loan, and how many employees do you have now? So keep in mind, this is only full-time employees. So if I have 4 people and I have a part-time shop helper, I have 4 employees today. It does not matter for this one if you reduce or increase employees. So just put those numbers as they are stated. Jackie, I got the forgiveness from the bank. They said it'd be unlikely not to be forgiven by the SBA, especially since they approved SBA lender. Yeah. And so Jackie was following up. She said that she got approval from her bank that it was okay. That is the exact verbiage that I got from another lender saying, hey, once the SBA starts processing these forgiveness applications, if the bank has okayed it, they're going to start stamping this. If you guys remember when you got the original PPP application in there, the banks were taking the longest. Once they submitted to the SBA, that was a pretty quick turnaround time. Jen, so asking if there's going to be full forgiveness with no forgiveness application if the loan is under a specific dollar amount, this right here is going to be the easiest we're going to get. They might extend this and have this for $150,000 or less. We're still going to have to do something. Really what they're probably the most worried about is this stuff here. You know, signing that we're not doing anything fraudulent, just so that if they ever want to come back. So probably not going to get much easier than that. Robin wanted to submit it, but Wells Fargo has not come out with how you do this. I have not heard anything about Wells Fargo. If someone else is a Wells Fargo customer in here, please chime in. I'm not expecting anything quick for Wells Fargo. I mean, they were one of the worst offenders for the original application. And it seems like the bigger the bank, the slower they move for some of these things. I wouldn't panic though, Robin. It's not a huge urgency. Are companies still applying for the EIDL loan for $150,000? You have to double check to see if they're still accepting it, but I believe they are still accepting applications for the EIDL loan, Gail. Hey, Linda. We did not pay the owner with PPP money. When I submit the quarterly info, we'll show his payroll. Will it be confusing then when they review it? Can I still use the 3580 EZ form? So you did not pay the owner with the PPP money. Okay, I think I see what you mean here. So you're saying that you didn't actually use the money in the PPP account to pay the owner's payroll. And so you don't technically have to only pay it out of that one account. We're just going off of what the payroll summary shows, whether you use QuickBooks, ADP, or whatever it is. And so you're just going to be using that. It doesn't matter if you pay it out of the PPP account, a savings account, a credit card, whatever it is. As long as you pay that expense in the business and it shows on the payroll report, you're perfectly fine. Being an LLC on Schedule C, if we had a $2,000 loss, as an owner, I cannot take any pay, correct? And so if you had a loss for last year, that probably means that you didn't get any count towards your wages for the PPP money. And so that does mean that you would not be able to take any of your pay as a deduction. As long as you maintained your employees, we should be able to use all of the money on your other employees. Thank you, Kareem. Full-time equivalent employees, 40 hours a week. So if you work 40 hours a week, that's a full-time equivalent employee. Good question, though, Devin. Awesome. Making sure I go through all the questions here. Any other questions on this? I posted the link in here on where you can find this. If you just Google PPP 3508S, it'll also come up with this form as well. Before you go through too much trouble, though, like I said, talk to your bank. Just check in with them. Hey, are you going to be having an online application? You're going to be having a portal. Should I be filling this out? What other documentation do you need from me? Just be open with them so that we can make their life easier, which in turn is going to make our life easier. All right, let's see. Got a couple more questions here. $5,000 in EIDL. When I applied for PPP forgiveness, I did state that I received the EIDL loan. When the bank says 100% forgiven, does that mean the EIDL would not needed to be paid back? So if you got the EIDL is going to need to get paid back. And so whether you got $5,000, whether you got $10,000, you're either going to have to pay that back in the form of the loan over 2 years, or you're just going to have to give them that money back. So the EIDL itself is actually forgiven, but the amount of your PPP is reduced by that amount. We're still not sure exactly how they're going to get that money back, but I'm setting that aside because they're going to want it back eventually. You are very welcome, Tina. Ruthie, if they're still allow people to apply for the EIDL loan, what is the benefit of getting this loan? It's 30 years, really cheap interest, no payments for 12 months. For a lot of my shops, if we don't have that much capital right now, most people do. Most people have been having a really good year. If I don't have that much capital now, I'm going to get that money and I'm going to use it as an insurance policy. hey, I don't know what's going to happen this winter. You know, we're going to have more shutdowns. Is the economy going to go down? For me, it's really cheap money and just kind of a fallback in case something happens. If I do have a ton of money in the bank right now, then maybe I don't need it. But I think it's just kind of a really cheap loan to have out there if you need it. Great information. Thank you, Kim. When I applied, the bank used my monthly pay. So you're going to, if the bank accepted that for the PPP application, you'll probably be able to get away with doing it for the forgiveness. Like I said before, though, if we have enough just by our employees, Nick, I wouldn't even worry about your own pay. You're very welcome, Joel. Gail, would it be beneficial to apply for the EIDL loan if they're still giving it? Yeah, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes of your time. The worst case, they're going to come back and they're say, no, Gail, you're not approved. Even when they come back and they say, Gail, you are approved, they give you a sliding scale of how much of that money you want to accept. And you still at that point could choose to decline it as well. But yeah, I would probably go and apply for it unless you just have a ton of money in the bank. And then Amy, we're going to end here on this one. Amy asks, what if an employee works 60 hours per week? Are they considered 1.5 employees? Nice try there, Amy, but no, that does not count. And so it's capped at 40 hours. So if you work 40 hours, you're counted as, or if you work 60 hours, you actually reduce that and it's just counted as working 40 hours. Awesome. So yeah, I just want to thank you guys for joining me today. Hopefully it was beneficial for you. Like I said before, keep an eye out. We're going to do another one of these same time next week and go into the easy form. But what other reminder that I wanted to give out there? Let's see, stop screen share, share screen. And put this up on the screen so that you guys can see it. Oh, it's not going to let me pull it up. I'll just have to do it verbally. So we are doing a leadership summit on November 12th. Some of you guys might have already seen us share it on the Facebook page. We're really excited about it. We got some really cool industry leaders coming on board with us. Chris Cotton will be on there. Jerry Frank will be on there. Chris Frederick will be on there. Aaron Stokes will be on there. I'm really looking forward to it. Completely free to join. Take a look at our Facebook page, our website. You can register there. And I hope to see a lot of you guys on there. So yeah, thanks again for joining me, and I will talk to you all soon.